Bangkok's a great city, but I told you I would always keep it real. So I'm going to tell you what's not so great about living in Bangkok. Everybody talks about Bangkok. It's cheap, it's fun, it's exciting, it's entertaining. Nobody really talks about the things that can drive you mad by living here. I've been here over a year now, and I'm going to keep it real with you today and tell you some of the things that aren't so great about Bangkok. Are you ready to dig into reality? Let's go.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, hey, it's JJ, the Lonely Bull in Asia, here at my favorite hangout, 39 Craft Coffee, having my Americano hot and my breakfast. And we're going to keep it real today. I love Bangkok. You guys know that. I talk about how great Bangkok is all the time. But today, I thought I would kind of keep it a little real and give you some reality checks on why maybe Bangkok's not the best place for you to visit or live. So let's talk about what's not so good about Bangkok. First of all, the heat. There's no real seasons, although the weather lately has been really, really nice. Now that we're out of the rainy season, it's a lot cooler than normal. But reality check is that it's always pretty hot here. And when we get into February, March through May, it's going to be extremely hot. And if you're not used to the heat and the humidity, Bangkok might not be the place for you. You know, in the evenings right now, it's nice and cool. In the mornings, if you're here before, if you're out before 10 a.m., it's relatively pleasant. Once in a while you get a nice little breeze. But once we get into those hot seasons after the first of the year, it's going to be pretty much unbearable no matter what time of day it is. Even in the evening, after the sun goes down, a lot of times there's no breeze. And so it's just, you've got that air that's just thick and heavy, and you just sweat no matter what. So basically, if you're going to be here, you kind of plan your life around being in the air conditioning. You know, in Bangkok, you don't get fit, you just sweat until your clothes give up. Number two is the air pollution. Today's not bad. Yesterday wasn't bad. Earlier this week, it was kind of bad. That PM 2.5 season really hits hard. And especially after the first of the year, when the burning season starts up north and that air quality gets down into the Bangkok area, it can get really messy. I remember last January, it got so bad that the city of Bangkok decided to let everybody ride the trains for free for a week to try to reduce traffic on the streets, to try to help alleviate some of that air pollution, or that, help on that air quality. That's how bad it got last January. So we'll see what happens. Already I'm noticing that there are days that are worse than others here. So really you need to be aware that if you have respiratory issues, there are times when the air quality is not good here. But generally speaking, it's okay through most of the year. There's just time periods, days or a week or so where it can get really, really bad. I feel it in my eyes a lot. My eyes will burn. Sometimes you'll feel it in your chest, especially if you already have respiratory issues. Wear a mask if you need to. Limit your outdoor activities, especially anything that's, that if you're working out outdoors, if you're doing long walks, that's what you need to limit. Really you end up checking that air quality map more than you check the weather forecast here in Bangkok on certain months of the year. Not all the time, but certain months. Number three, traffic can really destroy your soul. It is incredibly congested here in Bangkok. So if you take a taxi or a Grab or a tuk-tuk or the bus or a bike, you're going to be in traffic a lot, all the time mostly. There's hardly ever a time where the traffic's not bad, especially when you're in the tourist areas. Even short distances that you need to travel can take forever. So my advice, take the trains as much as possible. If you want to get from point A to point B quickly, take your chances on the back of a bike. You'll get there fast, but you may shave a couple of years off your life. Bangkok traffic teaches patience and anger management, maybe at the same time. I had a commenter the other day complaining about the sidewalks and how every 5 meters there's a utility pole, so you have to walk in the street to get around. That's partially true, I guess. Here, on Sukhumvit Road, most of the sidewalks are really wide and really nice to walk on. There are some of the side SOEs, even mine on 24, there are utility poles, not every 5 meters, but maybe 1 or 2 each block where you'll have to go around. But unless you're a, fat tub of goo, you can get around there without any issues, because there's still a lot of space on the sidewalk. It's probably, a meter or more, 1.5 meters on each side of the utility pole that you can walk around. Now there are times where you'll have to walk in the street, so you just have to be aware of your surroundings, make sure that a bike's not coming or a car, and you'll be fine. But there are times where the sidewalks are either very narrow or obstructed or non-existent, so you have to deal with that, just like most Southeast Asian countries. Also, some of the sidewalks aren't in great shape. The farther out you get from the tourist area, the worse the sidewalk quality is. So you may just be careful, because you could trip and fall, like I did in the Philippines. Sidewalk jumped up and bit me, and I broke both fingers there. So that can happen here, especially in places, if you're on some of the SOEs on Sukhumvit, like SOE 4, Nana, that area, the sidewalks are pretty bad there, so you just have to really be careful. Sidewalks aren't necessarily for walking here in Bangkok, it's for surprises. Number 5, bureaucracy is slow and confusing, especially when we talk about visas. There's so many different visas, and it can be very confusing, and they change the rules all the time, it seems like, or at least they're talking about it all the time. So you really have to stay on top of that. Find a reputable agent here in Bangkok or in Thailand that knows the laws and stays on top of things, or watch YouTube, but make sure you trust but verify, and double check any information you get on YouTube, because sometimes they're outdated, sometimes they just don't know what the hell they're talking about, so you really have to just be sure, because like I said, the visa rules change all the time, and sometimes in your favor, sometimes not in your favor. In line with that, when you go for extensions, you're going to wait a long time. Unlike in the Philippines, where every city's got at least one immigration office, Bureau of Immigration, here in Bangkok, they've got one for the entire city of Bangkok for extensions. So you're going to wait in line a long time. So plan on, if you're getting a 30-day extension from your free visa entry, make a whole day out of it. Go there, get in line early, fill out your paperwork, get your whatever documents you need, have your cash on hand, your photos that you can glue to your document, whatever it takes. Make sure you just plan that whole day. Don't think you can get in and out in a couple hours, because it's not going to happen. Thai bureaucracy is kind of like a puzzle where the pieces change every time you try to get something done. Number 6, noise. Noise is constant. Now, it's not the worst I've seen in Southeast Asia. The Philippines takes the trophy for the noisiest or the loudest country in the world in the countries I've visited, at least in Southeast Asia. But Bangkok's right up there. You'll find traffic noise, construction. I was going to do this video down closer to my condo, but at their coffee shop outside, but they're working on a building across the street, so they're drilling and they're pounding, and so I said, no, I'll come here instead. But you'll see that all the time. The loud bikes, the loud tuk-tuks, they're really loud. So if you're sitting out at a cafe outside and you're talking to having a conversation with your friend, 3 feet across from you at the table, the traffic may be so loud you can't hear each other talking. So that's how bad it can get. Now you kind of get used to it. I've gotten used to it to a point, but there are times emergency vehicle sirens are really, really loud. If you're looking for an apartment, make sure you check the traffic Make sure you go and look at your apartment at a time where the traffic is high. That way you can listen to see if it's quiet inside your apartment or not. I'm lucky my apartment's pretty soundproof. The only time I hear any traffic down below, and I'm only on the 16th floor, I'm not real high. The only time I really hear a lot of traffic is when an emergency vehicle goes by. I will hear that because they're very, very loud. But I don't hear motorcycles, I don't hear cars, so I got lucky in that respect. And part of it is because Bangkok doesn't sleep. It just kind of changes volume. So it goes from 11 at 9 or 10 o'clock at night to maybe a 9 at 3 in the morning. Number 7, it's easy to fall into unhealthy habits here in Bangkok. Cheap alcohol, late nights, easy temptations, whether it's at Nana Plaza or Soy Cowboy or Pat Pong, wherever the case may be, you can fall into those traps. The party culture is all over Bangkok if you want it. Just if you like the party culture, take it a little bit at a time. Don't overdo it. The problem a lot of times is many expats, they kind of burn out quietly. They don't see it coming. Before they know it, they're totally burned out and they've been here less than a year. Bangkok will give you freedom and then it'll watch what you do with it, whether you treat it right or not. Number 8, long-term friendships can be hard to find. This is a very transient community, very transient city. Now, I have friends that have been here for a long time, 7, 8, 9 years, some of them over 20 years. So those are friends that I know will be here. But I also have friends that make Bangkok their home base, but they travel a lot. So maybe they're only in the country 5 or 6 months out of the year, and the rest of the year they're off in traveling to other countries. So it's really hard to have a steady flow of friends here in Bangkok. I've got 2 really good small circles of friends that I associate with, and they've been great. But at the same time, a lot of them leave during the year, so it's kind of hit or miss whether we connect or not. So you'll find that a lot here in Bangkok. You kind of get used to that temporary friendship, and really it can cause that emotional fatigue over time. So, if you're the type of person that does not like to be alone, it may be difficult for you to adjust to that as far as friendship. People coming and going, being very transient. Number 9, Bangkok can feel isolated despite the crowds. There's millions of people here, but you can still feel lonely. If you've got friends that are gone on trips somewhere else, you're here alone, and you're kind of invisible. You walk through the streets of Bangkok, and nobody really pays much attention to you. I'm kind of lucky because I've got this YouTube channel, and it's getting to a point where it's getting larger. So people are starting to recognize me. I had a meet up yesterday with a subscriber, and I met him at Bureaucracy craft beer, and we're sitting there having dinner, and this guy comes up to me. He's British, and he shakes my hand, and he introduces himself and says, "Hey, I watch your channel," and I thought that was pretty cool. It's very humbling to see that. So I'm lucky in that respect. More and more people are starting to recognize me for my channel. But if you're just an expat living here, it can get fairly lonely a lot of times, and you really are invisible in a big city. If you're a Farang, there's so many around here. Farang meaning light-skinned foreigner. There's so many around here that the locals don't look at you any differently. That they just kind of walk by you and don't pay attention. Now, if you're outside of Bangkok in a less touristy area, maybe up in Isan or Chiang Rai or somewhere where there's not a lot of foreigners, not a lot of Farang, then you will get noticed. You're more of a novelty and kind of a celebrity almost in some places. So, but here in Bangkok, unless you're out away from the tourist area, not so much. You're never really alone in Bangkok, but you're really alone in Bangkok. Number 10, cost creep is real. What do I mean by cost creep? So Bangkok is cheap, but inflation is real. It can happen, and it can happen fast. If you like Western food, if you like really nice condos, fun nightlife, rooftop bars, clubs, all of that, adult entertainment, That stuff adds up, and it can add up really fast. So that can become a negative for you. You know, health insurance, visas, travel costs, all that adds up. You know, it's affordable until it's not. So I'm not saying that's really a negative, but it can be. It can weigh on you as far as financially, and that can become a negative. Bangkok's cheap if you live like a monk, but dangerous if you live like a tourist. If you're planning on living in Bangkok, I say this all the time, don't live like a tourist, live like you live there. You know, number 11 negative about Bangkok, customer service can be polite, but not direct. Here in Bangkok and a lot of Southeast Asian countries, people like to avoid, the locals want to avoid confrontation. So if you have an issue, customer service issue, those problems don't always get cleared up the correct way. Either they don't understand what you're trying to tell them, what you're trying to convey to them, what the issue you have is, or they don't have an answer, so they kind of shut down a little bit. I've seen that in the Philippines, I've seen that in Vietnam, I've seen it here. They don't want to have a confrontation, so they don't want to get into a back and forth with someone. And a lot of times, especially in restaurants, I know this is true in the Philippines, I don't know about here for sure, but if they make a mistake with your order, they end up having to pay for your meal if you send it back. So I would just be aware of that, and if it's just a small mistake, like they overcooked your food a little bit, or they gave you French fries instead of mashed potatoes, don't make a big deal out of it. Just adjust, you know. But it can be, that communication can be a negative. And finally, number 12, and before I get to that, make sure you hit that like button if you like the content, subscribe if you haven't yet, hit the notification bell so you get notified when I post new videos. So on to number 12, you might stay too long. What I mean by that is comfort zone kind of sets in. So you may not like living in Bangkok, it may be a negative for you overall, but you get in that comfort zone and it's harder to move than stay. It can be cheaper to stay where you're at than make a move. I saw a video the other day and the guy made a great point about moving to a new condo. You've got to pay 2 months deposit plus 1 month rent. So you're basically paying 3 months of your rent right off the top. So that could be an expensive endeavor for you. And if you're moving out of Bangkok, now you've got transportation costs. You've got to fly out. If you're flying out of the country, you've got to pack all your stuff. So you've got luggage that you got to check in, whatever the case may be. So those costs really add up. So maybe a lot of times even the negative parts about Bangkok, you kind of get in that comfort zone. It's like, oh, I really can't afford to move, so I'm kind of stuck here in that comfort zone. I see a lot in the comment section. I hear it a lot on some YouTube videos. I hear it on the street. There's a lot of expats that have lived here for a while and are miserable, and they're just full of negativity. And I've talked about this in another video, the toxic syndrome of expats. They hate their life, they hate everything about Bangkok, yet they're still here. So I don't know why, but they are, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe they're stuck here and they're just miserable, and they bring you down to their misery, and which is something you need to avoid. The biggest thing with them is one day they wake up here in Bangkok and realize they've never left. I love Bangkok. Bangkok is a great city. I've been coming here for 4 years now, and I've lived here over a year, and it's my favorite city in the world that I've lived in or visited. I wouldn't change anything about it. Yes, there are some things that you have to deal with. It's definitely not a fairy tale. It's not the unicorns and rainbows that a lot of people talk about, but you can say that with any city or any country in the world. Nothing's perfect, but if you can learn to adjust to the bad things, your life is going to be a lot better here. And honestly, if these things don't scare you, then Bangkok might be the perfect place for you. Maybe I'll see you here on the streets on Sukhumvit or somewhere. Anyway, like I said, like, share, and subscribe. As always, let me know in the comments below what you think, and live life, my friend. Sabay sabay. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.